Hi, I'm Miguel, nomadic writer, adventure traveler, and, dare I say, explorer, on a mission to travel the world collecting and sharing stories that immerse you in the parallel worlds of indigenous peoples, the incredible and magical worlds that lie in the forgotten corners of the earth. And in 2021, I set out on one of my greatest adventures yet, a journey into the Lacandon Jungle, Mexico's most remote forest, armed only with my 7-year-old phone, an elusive contact, and a backpack full of cojones. I wanted to know, what is life like among the Lacandon Maya, one of Mexico's most elusive indigenous peoples? To answer this question, I embarked on a journey into the jungle to live among the Lacandon Maya, and among whom I experienced life for an entire month. Throughout this time, I explored the incredible biodiversity of the Lacandon rainforest, marveled at the murals of Bonampak, rafted down mad jungle rivers, and learned about the worldview and culture of the Lacandon Maya, who I now count as dear friends. But let me start at the beginning. The Lacandon Jungle is located in southern Mexico, on the border with Guatemala. It's in the Mexican state of Chiapas, one of the country's most underdeveloped regions, and also home to some of its most vibrant indigenous cultures. The Lacandon Jungle is the Amazon of North America, some of the last pristine rainforest in the entire continent, an incredible biological reserve that holds a quarter of Mexico's animal species, a third of its birds, and more than half of its butterfly species, as well as over 1,500 different species of trees. I'm sure that there are plenty more undiscovered species inhabiting this insanely vibrant forest. It's a closet naturalist's paradise. The Lacandon Jungle is inhabited by the Lacandon Maya, a culture of Maya-speaking people theorized to be descendants of different indigenous peoples who fled into this remote, and some would say, inhospitable region following the Spanish conquest. The jungle houses some of the most impressive ruins in Mexico, including Palenque, Bonampak, and the ruins of mighty Yaxchilan on the banks of the Usumacinta River. Up until well into the latter half of the 20th century, the Lacandon Maya remained isolated in the remote jungle villages, where they preserved their language and culture, even as many other indigenous groups in Mexico lost theirs. Suffice to say, I was more than stoked to spend time exploring the jungle and experiencing life through the eyes of this vibrant culture. Jungle, welcome to the jungle. Wow. So much green, this is awesome. And there are all these different structures all around here. These used to be old Mayan structures that have just never been reconstructed. There's just not enough budget for so many of these houses and temples and buildings. They're just lying here in the middle of the jungle as they have been for 100 years. This is absolutely incredible. After Palenque, I set off on my journey armed with the name of a Lacandon willing to host me in his home, Daniel CHANKIN, a prominent member of the tribe who lives in the Lacandon village of Lacandon. A mutual acquaintance had given me Daniel's number, and he agreed to take me into his home and share his life with me. But first, I had to reach it overland. To get to Lacandon, I took a colectivo out of Palenque and set off along Federal Highway 307, the last federal highway to be built in Mexico, which was only built to give the army access to the interior of the jungle following the Zapatista armed uprising in 1994. Once I arrived, I was received by Daniel and his family. Daniel lives with his wife, who was pregnant at the time, and children in the village, along with Chich, their grandmother, and Rosie, a Tzeltal woman who helped take care of the children. Daniel and I hit it off immediately. He is quite an adventurer himself. He's the founder of Aventuras CHANKIN, a tour operator that runs the rafting expeditions down the Lacandon River and to the surrounding archaeological sites. He's active in the community and is a forward-thinking man. I would thoroughly come to enjoy the long conversations we would have about politics, society, culture, and life in general, after luxurious dinners of exotic bushmeats roasted over open fires beneath the dark jungle canopy and the starry night sky. As soon as I was settled into the village, Daniel took me out to explore the surrounding jungle. The land he occupies lies among the forest, with abundant streams, rivers, and waterfalls. I was immediately struck by how much nature I was surrounded by. It was like being submerged in a pulsating ocean of green. I had never seen so much life. There were flowers and fungi, plants and trees and vines of all shapes and sizes. If I wanted a biology class, all I had to do was squat down and observe the intricate web of life that lay on the ground. Right by Daniel's house was a giant ceiba tree, which is considered to be the sacred tree of the Mayan peoples, as it is believed to have its roots in Xibalba, the underworld, and its leaves in the heavens. We eventually reached the waterfalls. I couldn't believe my eyes with how vibrant and pristine the forest was, how close we were to nature. It really felt like I had stepped into an alternate dimension, a parallel world. Living on Daniel's land was a surreal experience. Lacandon Maya homes are simply built and furnished, usually constructed from wood, with metal tin roofs that sing the most beautiful music when the rains come. Sometimes the boundaries between where the house ends and nature starts can be blurry. Lacandon Maya feel very much at home surrounded by nature. Although there aren't many luxuries in Lacandon, life is a happy one for the Lacandon Maya. Children grow up playing in the forest. It's not only their playground, it's the only home they've ever known. Very rarely do they find the need to put on any kind of shoes. Life in the jungle affords its own little pleasures. One I particularly came to enjoy was the daily ritual of bathing in the river.
Yes, so there's no showers here. This is it, I guess. It's gonna be fun.
Taking off my clothes in the middle of the bush, no pun intended, looking out for insects and snakes, and most importantly, bathing quickly so the mosquitoes wouldn't eat me alive, was harrowing at first. But not only did I get used to it, I learned to actively enjoy it. Oh my god, that was the most refreshing shower ever. I mean, just taking a jungle bath to just wash off this muggy, wet heat is absolutely... Where's my path? I'll get lost. It's absolutely refreshing. It is incredible here. I mean, just look at these trees, the vegetation, nature, the sounds of cicadas and birds, and it's absolutely incredible. This has been by far one of my favorite showers of all time. Life in the jungle is far from boring. There is plenty of potential for adventure to be had when submerged in this vast expanse of green. I had my fair share of adventures while living among the Lacandon Maya. One of those days, Daniel invited me to raft the Lacandon River with him. As the founder of Aventuras CHANKIN, a rafting and adventure outfitter and tour guide service in Lacandon, Daniel is no stranger to adventure. The Lacandon River, which we'd be rafting, passes through the Lacandon Jungle until it empties into the Usumacinta River, which marks the border between Mexico and Guatemala. The name Lacandon comes from the Mayan words for snake and water, to mean the snaking river, or how this lush waterway twists and turns on its journey downstream. That day, we would only be doing a small section of the river, as doing a full run would take up to 10 days. I was very excited to get on the water and paddle our way to incredible adventures in the forest. We are about to set off on the rafting expedition down the river. It would be my first time rafting, but luckily, I wouldn't be alone, as we'd be adventuring with a group of tourists. With its thick vegetation, hanging vines and flowering plants, the Lacandon River looked like a scene straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. After a quick rundown of basic rafting procedures, we set down at a steady pace downriver, towards the first waterfalls we would need to pass and the rapids that lay beyond. Rafting takes quite a bit of teamwork. It requires the coordination of every rower and a steady hand at the tiller to guide the raft to where it needs to go. We were surrounded on both sides by thick jungle. We could see orchids and vines hanging from the tree branches that hung over the water. I only hope to God there were no crocodiles waiting to snatch us if we fell into the river. The first waterfalls we passed were easy enough to get the hang of the motions. It would only take passing a couple of them for nervousness to quickly give way to excitement, even elation. As our little expedition raced down the Lacandon River, the waterfalls and rapids got progressively more and more exciting. This was a surreal experience. I couldn't believe I was in the middle of this jungle, rafting past waterfalls and living this incredible adventure. At one point, we had to disembark and carry the rafts to get past the steepest waterfalls, which gave us a chance to explore more of this otherwise inaccessible part of the jungle. Then, we reached the point where we needed to pass the final waterfalls. These were quite intimidating, as they were made up of several tiers of waterfalls. Perfect coordination of the raft would be needed to successfully get through them. One by one, our raft sped down the different levels of the waterfalls, and with the exception of a single man overboard incident, came out the other end of our adventure safe and sound.
Grab him!
This was an incredible experience that I will always remember. I will most definitely be rafting again. After finishing our rafting trip, Danielle took me to the ruins of Bonampak, an ancient Mayan site which houses breathtaking murals, one of the most intact pieces of mural art found anywhere in the Maya world. The city flourished in the classical period of Maya history, as a vassal state to the nearby city of Yaxchilan, another Maya city that lies on the banks of the Usumacinta River. The site has several intact temples and stelae, monolithic stone monuments that tell the stories of ancient Mayan dynasties. One of them even shows the marriage ceremony of a Maya prince to a princess. But the treasure of Bonampak is in its murals, which are incredibly well preserved. They detail the ceremonial life of an ancient Mayan court, complete with battle scenes, musicians, priests, plumed nobles, and the ruling ahaus, the lords of Bonampak. The murals are in 3 chambers within one of the pyramids. I marveled at the vibrant scenes portrayed on the walls. Now inside the temple of the murals, here as you can see, this is a unique place with these very, very beautiful Mayan frescoes. This is a scene that represents the presentation of Chan Muan's heir to the throne, and it shows all the library and all the elegance and the beauty of ancient Mayan ceremonies and just how cohesive and intricate a society they were. Everything here in the jungle will decay really fast, and the fact that these frescoes were preserved so perfectly that you can even see the individual brush strokes with which the artist painted them is not only a miracle in and of itself, but a gift to humanity and to researchers to know how ancient Mayan civilization must have looked like straight from the mouth of the Mayans themselves. The world of the ancient Maya was brought to life through the images of royal processions, elaborate dances, epic battles, and ceremonial sacrifice. Surrounded as it was by the jungle, Bonampak itself is very beautiful. When you climb up the pyramid steps to the top of the temples, you feel as though you're flying among the tops of the trees. We're going up to the heights, climbing up the great steps of the pyramid to the top, and a glorious view of the Lacandon Jungle. Onward. You can see and hear all kinds of wildlife and appreciate the surrounding landscape in ways that being on the ground in the thick forest just doesn't allow. It's incredible to imagine that this site was once very much a living, thriving settlement where people lived out their lives. just love exploring these ancient ruins and trying to decipher and unlock the secrets left behind by these ancient peoples who are still, even now, to this day, around us. Here behind me you have an image of a ruler with a plumed headdress crowned by a figure of Chak, the rain god, and flanked by two dwarves that represent the god Kawil, the protector of Mayan dynasties. And if we are to walk over this way, we can just get a view of this absolute pristine, beautiful jungle and the greenery of these forests of jade where these ruins can be found. So you're not just doing some exploring of these ancient peoples and these ancient cultures, but you're also witnessing the world that they lived in, the world that they inhabited. These magical forests where 1/4 of Mexico's species live, the Lacandon rainforest. You find such peace up here, where the rulers of Bonampak would have believed themselves gods, so close to the sky. Up here among the trees and the birds and the calls of the animals in the forest. It really is something else, something magical. The Mayans have inhabited the forest from time immemorial. It's Mother Nature. It provides them with absolutely everything they require, which was something I learned one of those days when I set out into the jungle with Danielle to forage for food. This time, we had to go into the thick maze of green. We were going off-path, armed only with machetes. Daniel's knowledge of the jungle is vast. He learned it from his parents growing up. Up until fairly recently, Lacandon knowledge and traditions were passed down orally. He showed me how, if one were traveling in the thick jungle and couldn't find a water source to quench his thirst, they could try to find a specific vine that, when cut, would provide plenty of hydration, maybe even save your life.
Y luego lo tomas.
Va a soltar el agua, te va a soltar. Ahorita va a ver si suelta. A ver, yo lo voy a agarrar.
Ajá.
Ahorita a ver si vas a ver que trae una burbuja. Como tiene ahí.
Sí. ¿Y se toma?
Ese se toma. Pruébalo. Si estás muriendo en la selva, tú tienes que tomar. Pero también hay que conocer.
Claro.
Porque si no conoces, no lo puedes tomar. Cuando lo cortan, esta es una cruz. Más que no se ve. Eso es una cruz. Aquí lo trae aquí. Pero cuando lo lavas, ahorita lo vamos a lavar y lo vamos a poner. ¿Sí lo ves?
Ajá.
Esta es una cruz aquí.
Ajá.
Por eso se llama bejucosán.
Ah, porque
Sí.
la cruz.
Ajá, trae una cruz. Sí, esto vamos a echar en café.
¿En el café?
O sea, no, o sea, es como café.
Ah, ya.
Si no quieres tomar café, y esto lo puedes tomar.
Daniel then showed me how the wood from a vine could be boiled to produce a coffee substitute that the Lacandon drink as a tea. So of course, we harvested plenty of it so we could have a nice hot drink for later that night. But the main reason we were going into the jungle was that Daniel's pregnant wife had been craving eggs cooked along with palm shoots. So, of course, we had to oblige. We walked through the jungle, looking for suitable tender palm shoots for that morning's breakfast. I struggle to find them, as it's very difficult to distinguish them while submerged in a sea of greenery. But Daniel has keen eyes, and he finds them with ease.
Ahí va.
Breakfast is served for one more day. As the days turned to weeks, I steadily grew more and more accustomed to the steady rhythms of daily life in the Lacandon Jungle. As Daniel and his family grew used to me, I started to feel as a part of the family. In between adventures, most days were spent talking and getting to know one another, as well as the ever-constant contemplation of nature. The children would run and get me every single time they would see an exotic animal or a bird I hadn't seen or photographed. Day by day, I slowly picked up the subtle art of cooking the traditional Lacandon Maya way, on open fires beneath the shade of the jungle canopy. Where we placed the fire was different every night, depending on whether it rained or if we wanted to observe the stars as we ate. Most nights, we would sit around after dinner on rocking chairs, or even just on the ground, talking and joking and having interesting conversations. Many times, the CHANKINs would speak Lacandon Maya amongst themselves, of which I spoke very, very little. I slowly picked up phrases like the traditional Lacandon greeting, Ki in war, which means, are you happy? And smaller phrases here and there. We would eat all kinds of exotic jungle foods. River fish, snails, armadillos, ducks, chickens. One night, we had river snails for dinner.
Dale la vuelta atrás, chúpalo así. Ahí está.
Todo menos la tapa.
Sí. Ahora solo la tapa vas a quitar. Así es. Ya
Esto está rico, ¿eh?
Sí, está bueno. En la pandemia, tuvimos que echar mucho. Con eso sobrevivimos con la pandemia.
The Lacandons are used to eating all kinds of foods that the forest provides. I even ate a giant rhinoceros beetle, which the Lacandon call shrouded. Cheech, their grandmother, took a special interest that I should eat a giant beetle with her. We waited for weeks and weeks until they were in season, and one of them finally made his appearance, after it flew at us from a tree. After the children excitedly captured it, we roasted it over the fire coals and cracked its carapace open, revealing the tender meat behind the wings. Esta la grasita.
Esta es grasa. Aquí está. Usaste caja tijuana. ¿Ah?
Sí.
Usaste caja
It
tijuana.
tasted like barbecued chicken and was quite delicious.
¿Ah?
Tiene espina.
Sí, tiene.
Delicioso, las delicias de la selva. Me pasó por la cabeza cuando se cayó, ¿verdad?
Sí,
Yo pensé que era un
sí.
murciélago.
Y también él se espantó también. Yo pensé que...
On one special occasion, the CHANKINs decided that they would show me how to prepare traditional Lacandon cacao, which they call in their language. Cacao is sacred in Maya cosmology and worldview. It's a divine drink, so this was a very special occasion. To start, we would have to procure the ingredients to prepare the chocolate. We drove into Nueva Palestina, a Celtal Maya settlement near Lacandon, to visit the market. They sold raw cacao there, and we procured a pound of fresh beans. Next, Daniel and I wandered into the jungle to find the secret ingredient to making Lacandon Cacao, a special vine that only grows in the jungle that, when ground with the cacao, allows the chocolate to froth. This froth is considered the real delicacy of Lacandon chocolate, where the true spirit, taste and aromas of the cacao can present themselves. It took us a while to find the vine in the jungle, as it's somewhat rare, but Danielle eventually spotted a thin wispy vine and told me that we had finally found it. Next, Cheech started a fire and roasted the cacao beans. She threw in some ash from the fire to prevent the beans from burning on the pan. She afterward mixed the cacao with maize and the vine Danielle and I had found, and ground everything together in the mill, which she then proceeded to knead by hand. The resulting dough was then mixed with water and stirred using a wooden ladle to bring out the chocolate froth that they love. This was then served over a tole, a porridge of maize and sugar, and eaten straight from the cup. Throughout this process, the children had observed their grandmother intently as she went through the motions of the recipe. They were learning how to make for themselves, and I realized that I had the privilege of seeing how this ancient recipe was being passed down from one generation to the other in real time. On other days, I would go out with Daniel to help him with his work, driving tourists to Bonampak, translating for him, or otherwise helping him with small favors as a way to correspond his hospitality and earn my keep. On some of those days, I would come into contact with Pearl the monkey. Pearl is a spider monkey adopted by one of the families in Lacandon after they rescued her from poachers. They treat her like a sister, and she really is a part of the family. We would sometimes spend part of the afternoon at the store, waiting for Danielle to come back from an errand and monkeying around, literally, with Pearl. ¿Necesitas ayuda? We would chase her and be chased in turn, and it was fun to have her hang out with us, or on us. It was like playing with a toddler who was too strong for his own good. Spider monkeys are funny creatures. Esteban liked to go and play the slot machines at the corner store, and Pearl had an unfortunate inclination to steal his coins and make off with her ill-gotten goods. She even ran off with his coins and tried to get away in the family car, until her sister ran to fetch her and brought her back. One day, Daniel told me that they had to go to the Lacandon village of Naha to drop off some goods that he'd been paid to deliver. Of the two main Lacandon Maya villages in the jungle, Naha is the more isolated of the two, one where the locals still practice the old ways in the comfort of mountainous isolation. To get there, we would have to traverse the rough Chiapas backcountry roads. It would take us hours to get all the way to Naha. Several times, we had to step out of the car to lighten its load and allow it to make it up the steep dirt roads. But as we crossed the mountains, known as the Montes Azules, or the Blue Mountains, for the blue-green hue that they acquire in the distance, I grew ever more enchanted by the beauty of this land. The locals here aren't Lacandon. They're from other Maya indigenous groups who migrated from the south in recent decades. These mountains are Zapatista country. The Zapatistas are a revolutionary Mexican guerrilla group that aims to restore indigenous autonomy in the region. The Mexican government doesn't control Zapatista zones. There is no law here but the people's law. As my time in the Lacandon jungle drew to a close, I began to reflect on my adventures and how spending time in this vibrant community changed the way I see and interact with the world. Spending time in the Lacandon jungle was an experience of a lifetime. Living among the Lacandons not only opened my eyes to the incredible beauty and creative capacity of nature, but to how we can coexist with Mother Nature without destroying her. This is the magic of travel, to be able to experience life as others do, to learn from other cultures and grow our comfort zones and worldviews. When I first stepped into the jungle, I never realized that my journey to explore the world outside would also lead me on a journey of self-discovery. Throughout the time I lived among the Lacandon, I learned much about myself and how I relate to the world around me. I learned that I can connect with people who seem to be very different from me. and came to appreciate how I can also bring excitement and companionship to the lives of others. Nowadays, the Lacandon Jungle faces grave perils that threaten its existence. For instance, the disordered migration of people from southern Chiapas who lack the Lacandon's connection to the jungle and who illegally log the jungle to turn the once vibrant rainforest into pastures for raising cattle. Daniel told me that once the cattle start trampling the cleared forest ground, the jungle won't grow there anymore. In this way, vast swaths of pristine forest have been lost to the mindless introduction of cattle and the growing of palm trees to harvest palm oil. Another growing danger is the rising presence of drug cartels in the jungle, with the aim of controlling the lucrative drug, weapon, and human trafficking routes on the Guatemalan border. It's an open secret that they construct clandestine airfields in the jungle to assist with the smuggling of drugs from South America, bound for the American black market. The rising tensions and violence between the cartels and the locals threaten the delicate ecosystem and the tourism on which the Lacandon depend on, and further aggravate the economic situation for the indigenous communities of the Lacandon Jungle. I hope you enjoyed our travel documentary about life in the Lacandon Jungle. Hopefully you guys found this to be informative. If you did, remember to give this video a thumbs up, like, subscribe, drop a comment. If you want to visit this vibrant community, raft the Lacandon River, and go on guided tours of the jungle, contact Daniel. His information is in the description of this video. Please support us by liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing to our channel. It keeps us growing and allows us to continue on our mission to bring you incredible travel stories from all over the world. So until the next adventure, amigos, safe travels. Keep on rambling and roving. Adios.